Have you ever wondered why just a small thought can completely change a person's life? In life, everyone wants to live honestly, work hard, and stay true to their good values. But sometimes, what causes people to lose everything is not hardship or poverty, but a single misguided thought that appears in a moment of weakness. This story reveals a powerful lesson. If we don't learn how to control our thoughts, even a good person can make the wrong choice. Every action begins with a thought, and just one greedy or negative idea can lead us far away from the right path. Pak was a young man living in a small town, where each day passed in hardship and exhaustion. He didn't come from a wealthy family, nor did he have anyone to support him or pave an easy path ahead. Every morning, Pak would leave his modest home and wander from place to place in search of work, hoping to earn just enough to survive. Some days, he found small, temporary jobs and earned a few coins, but many other days he returned empty-handed, carrying a heavy heart. His meals were often simple, just enough to fill his stomach before bracing himself for yet another difficult day. Despite such harsh circumstances, Pak held on to something truly precious: his honesty. He never wanted to earn money through deception, manipulation, or by taking what belonged to others. To him, being poor was not something to be ashamed of. Losing one's integrity in the pursuit of quick wealth was. That's why, even when life pushed him to the brink of exhaustion, he continued to live in accordance with his conscience. Yet it was this very harsh life that quietly created a void within him, a deep longing to change his fate, to find a real opportunity to break free from the cycle of struggle. And that is why, when the true test finally appeared, Pak was not only faced with a simple opportunity, but also with the deepest thoughts hidden within himself. His poverty was not just the beginning of the story, it became the backdrop that would later highlight the intense inner conflict he would have to face. One day, after wandering all day without finding any work, Pak returned feeling exhausted and heavy-hearted. On the quiet road, just as he was about to lose all hope, an old voice suddenly called out from behind him. "Is anyone there? Could you help me for a moment?" Pak turned around and saw an elderly man standing by the roadside with 3 large bags that looked extremely heavy. Without hesitation, Pak walked over and said, "Yes, I can help. What do you need me to do?" The old man studied him for a moment before replying, "I need to get to the village across the river, but I can't carry all these bags. If you help me carry one, I'll pay you fairly." Pak nodded and lifted one of the bags onto his shoulder. The moment he touched it, he felt its overwhelming weight. Still, he didn't complain. He simply walked quietly alongside the old man. Along the way, the man occasionally glanced at Pak with a probing look, as if testing him. When they reached the river, the old man asked Pak to carry another bag, adding a subtle warning, "There's money inside. I hope you're trustworthy." Pak felt slightly offended, but calmly replied, "I'm not a dishonest person. I just want to earn money through my own effort." And so, he continued helping without hesitation, unaffected by suspicion or the first signs of temptation. His actions showed that while he was poor in material wealth, he was rich in character. However, what mattered most was this: the real test had not yet begun. These seemingly simple steps were only the beginning of a much greater challenge, one that would test not just Pak's strength, but also his thoughts, integrity, and inner resolve. If this story made you reflect, comment 9 to show that you're also learning how to control your thoughts. As Pak carried all 3 bags and walked on alone, the road ahead seemed quieter than ever. There were no longer the old man's watchful eyes, no reminders, no suspicion, only Pak, and the thoughts that began to quietly emerge in his mind. At first, it was just a fleeting idea. If I take all these bags and leave, the old man won't be able to catch me. But that thought didn't stop there. It grew clearer, stronger, more persuasive. Pak began to imagine an entirely different life, one of wealth, free from poverty, no longer struggling day after day. He started convincing himself that this was a rare opportunity, that if he let it slip away, he might remain trapped in hardship forever. In that very moment, the real battle was no longer about action. It was happening inside Pak's mind. On one side were the values he had upheld for so many years. On the other was a temptation growing stronger by the second. And the most frightening part was this. Everything had started from just a tiny thought, yet it carried the power to pull him away from the right path. Unable to resist the thoughts growing stronger in his mind, Pak finally made a wrong decision. He began to run, carrying all 3 bags, his heart pounding, torn between fear and hope for a wealthy future ahead. When he reached home, breathless from exhaustion, he hurriedly opened each bag with overwhelming excitement. But in that very moment, everything collapsed before his eyes. There was no gold, no silver, no money, only lifeless stones. Pak stood frozen. His dreams of wealth vanished instantly, replaced by confusion and regret. In his panic, he noticed a small piece of paper hidden among the stones. Trembling, he opened it, and each line cut deeply into his mind. The old man was actually the king, searching for an honest person to choose as his successor. If Pak had not run away, he could have been the one chosen. In that moment, Pak realized he had lost the greatest opportunity of his life, not because he was poor, not because he lacked ability, but because he failed to control a single greedy thought. Everything he had upheld for so many years was shattered by one brief decision. And the most painful part was not losing the opportunity, but realizing that he could have chosen differently. Pak's story concludes with a profound lesson about the power of thought. It wasn't poverty or a lack of opportunity that led to his downfall, but his inability to control his mind in a crucial moment. From an honest person, Pak lost everything simply because he allowed a greedy thought to guide his actions. This shows that every thought, no matter how small, can directly shape our choices and our future. If we learn to pause at the right moment, observe, and control our thoughts, we can avoid painful mistakes. On the other hand, just a single moment of losing control can cost us the greatest opportunity of our lives. That is why learning to master your thoughts is ultimately learning to master your life. Pak's story concludes with a profound lesson about how our thoughts can determine the course of an entire life. He did not fail because of poverty, nor because of a lack of opportunity, but because he was unable to control his own mind in a critical moment. For a long time, he had lived honestly and stayed true to his principles, yet a single passing greedy thought was enough to make everything collapse. This shows that a good nature is not something permanent. It must be protected every day, especially in moments of temptation. Every thought is like a seed. If you allow negative thoughts to grow, they will gradually influence your emotions, guide your actions, and ultimately create outcomes you never intended. On the other hand, if you learn to pause, observe, and choose the right thoughts, you gain the power to take control of your life. Life doesn't just test you through external circumstances, it also tests you through what happens inside your mind. And sometimes, the greatest victory is not overcoming challenges outside, but conquering yourself.